Good morning, students. In this video, we will explain Class 8th Science, Chapter 3rd, Materials, Metals and Non-Metals. Firstly, I explained some topics of these chapters. The first point of this chapter is elements. What is elements and what is used of elements, metals and non-metals. Secondly, classification of elements, metals, non-metals and metalloids. Next, physical properties of metals and non-metals. And next, chemical properties of metal and non-metals. The next is reaction of oxygen, water and dilute acid and base of metals and non-metals. The next, displacement reactions of metals or non-metals. Next and last topic in this chapter, uses of common metals and non-metals. So today's first topic in this chapter is elements. What is elements? All materials, metals or non-metals, are made up of only a few basic units called elements. For example, oxygen, hydrogen, zinc, gold, etc. An element consists only one kind of atoms and cannot be broken down in simpler substance by chemical and physical methods. In simple way, a pure substance that consists of only one kind of atoms is called element. Element is the smallest unit of atom. It is smallest unit of atom. Elements cannot be broken down into simpler units. So it is called basic unit of substance. There are only 118 elements are known in these state. Out of which only 94 are found in nature and other are made by scientists in laboratory or lab. So 94 is the natural, but other are found by chemically processes. The next topic of this chapter is the classification of elements. We know that all the subjects around us are made up some materials. Different materials have different properties depending upon the appearance, hardness, luster and few other properties. Materials can be classified into metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. First, we explain what is metals and what is used of metals. Metals, what is metals? The elements which are hard, lustrous, malleable, ductile, sonorous, and good conductors of heat and electricity are called metals. For example, gold, silver, iron, lead, etc. are all the metals. Here we explain what is this properties of those metals, which are hard means tough, luster means shiny. Metals have mostly shiny, so here lusters are shiny materials. Malleable means which are melt in presence of temperature. Ductile, ductiles means which able to be drawn out into thin wire. Or sonorous. Sonorous means which have pleasant or deep and full sound. So metals provide deep and full sound and good conductors of heat and electricity, means which passes out one point to other point heat or electricity easily, so it's called good conductors. Which have all properties, so called metals. So which elements have hard, shiny materials, malleable or melt easily in presence of temperature, ductiles which forms a thin wires, which have pleasant or deep and full sound, and which passes about heat and electricity in one point to other point easily, are called metals. Example of the metals is the gold, silver, iron, lead, etc. All metals have all these properties, but some metals exhibit exceptional properties. For example, mercury. Mercury is found in liquid form, and sodium is a soft solid with low density. All metals have solid forms, but some metals like mercury, francium, cesium, gallium are found in liquid forms. So these metals are exceptional metals. Most of metals that occur in the earth crust exist in their combined state. These are called minerals. You all know that what is minerals. Minerals is the combined form of the metals. Some metals found in nature combined form and some are found in free state in nature. The next topic is non-metals. The elements which are brittle, non-lustrous, non-malleable, non-ductiles and poor conductors of heat and electricity are called non-metals. For example, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen are all the non-metals. They are not hard and shiny. They found in nature gaseous, solid and liquid states. Bromine is the only one non-metal that exists as liquid state. These are found in gaseous state in nature and bromine are found as liquid state in nature. So bromine are the only one non-metals which found liquid state in nature. These are found all state, solid, liquid and gaseous state, but in nature but in naturally it found in liquid state. The next is the metalloids. Some elements which have the characteristics of both metals and non-metals are called metalloids. So, metalloids have metals and non-metals, both of the characters. These are semiconductors. Semiconductors means these are insulate or conducts of electricity and heat. Insulate means that inhibit the light or heat and conduct means you all know that passes out the light and electricity one point to other point. So these are insulate and conductors both. So these called semiconductors which have exhibit the light and heat and passes the light and heat. These called semiconductors. For example, silicon and boron. These are metalloids which have very useful in computer chip materials. These are useful in computer chip materials. So, these are most important materials of that day. The next topic is physical properties of metals and non-metals. Here we show metals and non-metals, and so all properties which are classified metals and non-metals. Metals and non-metals can be identified on the basis of their appearance and other physical properties like hardness, luster, malleability, ductility, sonority, conductivity, and so on. So, I discuss in some properties which are identified what are metals and what are the non-metals. The first point is the physical state. Physical state is the condition in which an element found at room temperature. Metals are generally solid form found in room temperature, but some metals are liquid state in room temperature. For example, mercury and gallium are found in liquid state. Non-metals occur normally solid and gaseous at room temperatures. Some solid non-metals are carbon, sulfur, and gaseous non-metals are oxygen, nitrogen, and only one non-metals exist, liquid form, bromines. Bromines are formed in liquid. The second is strength. Most of metals are generally hard and strong. Exceptions are sodium, potassium, aluminium, magnesium, which are soft, can be cut with knife easily. So these metals are exceptions of metals. But in non-metals are very soft and low density. Exception of diamond. Diamond is the non-metals which have hardest in natural substance. The next point of metals and non-metals also luster. Luster means shiny and brightness. Most of metals can be polished to give characteristic metallic luster. For example, gold, silver, copper all have luster properties. They have ability to shiny and reflect of light. But in non-metals have dull surface. Some non-metals, for example graphite, diamond and iodine have luster properties. These are the exception of non-metals. The next physical properties of metals and non-metals are malleability. The property of metals by which they can be beaten into thin sheets is called malleability. This is a characteristic properties of metals. Gold and silver are best malleable metals. But in non-metals, these are not malleable. They are brittle and they break into pieces on hammering. The next property of metals and non-metals is ductility. Metals can be melted and drawn into thin wires. This property is known as ductility. Ductility means ability to be hammered thin. Gold, silver, copper and aluminium are very ductile, but in non-metals have no ductility. They break on stretching. So, non-metals are non-ductile. The next property of conductivity. Metals are generally good conductors of heat, but gold, silver and copper are very good conductors of heat. Coppers are good quality household electrical wiring is made. So, coppers used in properly made of wires. Some metals are bad conductors. For example, lead and tungsten. But in non-metals do not have conductivity. These are bad conductors of heat and electricity. Graphite is an exception who was good conductors of heat and electricity. The next property of sonority. The substance which produces a ringing sound when struck with hard materials or beaten with hard materials. These are called sonorous substance, and this quality is called sonority. For example, gold, copper, iron have properties of sonority. So all metals good sonorous substance, but in non-metals do not produces ringing sound when struck hard. Hence, they are not sonorous. The next point of melting and boiling point. These are the main identification point of metals and non-metals. First, boiling point. Which temperature substance have melt? This called boiling point. And which temperature the substance have melt or starting melting, this point called melt or melting point. Metals have high boiling and melting point. Mercury is an exception which have low boiling point. And sodium and potassium are exception which having low melting point. But all metals have high melting and boiling point. In non-metals generally have low melting and boiling point. The exception is graphite because it has high melting and boiling point. So this table where explain differences between physical properties of metals and non-metals. Pause this table and note down in notebook. Here we explained some physical properties of metals and non-metals. These are the identical point of the metals and non-metals. First property, physical state, malleability, ductility, conductivity of heat and electricity, metallic luster, density, hardness and tensile strength, melting and boiling point, and sonority. All points we explained in this video. In detail. These tables note down in notebook and solve some questions with the help of these tables. With the help of these tables, solve these questions and find these materials, his properties. So the question is to study the appearance, hardness and malleability of metals and non-metals. Some materials are given below: coal, silver, sulfur, copper, aluminium, graphite, iron, gold, rubber, oxygen, bromine, diamond, lead and sodium. These are materials. You explain these natural conditions, these physical properties or physical state, and malleability, ductility, hardness, etc. This question solve and find out these properties of the materials. Make the table and solve it. Is actual conditions. In next video, I explain the chemical properties of physical metals and non-metals and other points of these chapters with example. The next question is, write the difference between metals, non-metals and metalloids. Explain in detail. Thank you. Have a nice day.